The icy plains of Ganymede stretched endlessly under a dark, star-filled sky. Frozen winds howled across the cracked surface, but deep beneath the ice, silence reigned until a fireball tore through the atmosphere and smashed into the ground, sending tremors through the moon's crust. A derelict alien vessel, broken and scorched, lay buried halfway in the ice, its strange green metal glowing faintly with power. Hours later, a single figure arrived in a small exploration craft, Dr. Elias Ward, a human xenobiologist working alone on a remote science outpost. He'd picked up a faint distress signal coming from the moon's southern quadrant, coded in a language no human system could fully translate. Curious and sensing something far more serious than a simple mechanical failure, Elias geared up and followed the signal, not knowing what he was about to find would change not only his life, but the fate of 2 entire civilizations. Elias moved carefully through the jagged remains of the alien ship, his boots crunching on frozen metal shards. The corridors were dark, lit only by flickering lights and the dim glow from his helmet. The air was thin but breathable. It was clear the ship had been attacked, not just damaged by the crash. Blaster burns covered the walls, and in one corridor, he saw signs of an intense firefight. The deeper he went, the more he felt a strange pressure in his head, as if someone or something was trying to speak to him without words. Then he found her. She was lying inside what looked like a command chamber, surrounded by cracked control panels and flickering holograms. Her skin was pale violet, her features sharp and delicate, with a crown-like circlet resting across her brow. Her legs were motionless, twisted slightly under her, and her breathing was shallow. Elias didn't need a scanner to see she was badly hurt, rushed forward, kneeling beside her. For a moment, her glowing silver eyes opened, locking onto his. Then he heard a voice not spoken, but inside his mind. Faint, uncertain, but clearly not his own. Stunned, Elias reached for his medkit as he worked to stabilize her. His mind swam with questions. Who was she? What species? How was she speaking to him without using words? But more than that, what kind of danger was she in? And why had her ship been shot down? Despite the pain on her face, she looked at him with a mixture of fear and hope. Elias noticed symbols carved into the walls, an ancient, elegant script that matched none of the known galactic languages. He carefully lifted her onto a portable gurney, knowing time was short. As he carried her through the icy wreckage back to his ship, the pressure in his head returned, stronger now, like a whisper. Brushing against his thoughts, back at his base, Elias placed her in a containment pod and activated his translator systems. Over the next few hours, Thalira remained unconscious, but he began piecing together fragments of her memory, telepathic echoes that bled into his dreams. He saw flashes of a grand palace floating among the stars, a proud alien people dressed in ceremonial robes, and then fire, betrayal, her own guards turning on her. A burst of light, pain, then darkness. Thalira was not just any alien, she was a princess, heir to the Zyari Empire, a mysterious race known only in distant rumors. Someone had tried to kill her. When she awoke, Elias was there, speaking slowly, carefully, using a combination of gestures and words. She was weak, but her mind was sharp. Though her body had suffered damage, especially her lower spine, her telepathy was strong enough to build a link. As the connection deepened, she began to explain her mission. She had uncovered a conspiracy within the Zyari High Councilor's secret alliance, between traitors in her empire and unknown forces within the outer human colonies. Their goal: start a war, wipe out both sides' leadership, and replace them with AI-controlled regimes. She had tried to escape with the data to warn the Galactic Alliance, but her ship was sabotaged. She crashed while trying to reach the human-controlled zone near Jupiter. Elias realized that the data she carried could be the only evidence of this plot, and that if her enemies found her, they would kill her without hesitation. But there was more. Thalira told him that the Zyari had long dismissed humans as primitive, unfit to lead or influence galactic affairs. Her presence here, helpless and alone, was something her people would see as shameful. But Elias didn't see her as weak. He saw a leader intelligent, determined, and full of quiet strength. She could not walk, but her will was unbroken. And though their connection had started with suspicion, it was slowly becoming something more, an alliance built not on power or orders, but on understanding. Outside space was dark and cold, but inside the small base, two beings from different worlds shared the same fire, the need to survive, and the desire to stop a war before it began. Elias knew that by helping her, he was placing himself in grave danger. But as he looked into her eyes, silver and bright with a flicker of hope, he made a decision. He would stand with her, not as her savior, but as her equal. First contact had already happened. What came next would decide the fate of millions. The cold silence of space wrapped tightly around the research outpost like a frozen blanket. But inside, the tension was thick and rising. Thalira remained in the medical pod, her body weakened and still, but her mind was restless and alert. The flickering lights above her reflected in her silver eyes as she stared at Elias, who stood nearby studying an alien diagram she had. Projected onto the screen, showed the hidden location of something buried deep within the remains of her crashed ship, small but vital device called the Neural Data Core. This core held more than memories. It was a living record of events leading up to her ship's sabotage, containing encrypted messages, intercepted orders, and proof of a growing conspiracy between traitors within her own Zyari empire in secret, factions hiding among humanity's outer colonies. Though Elias didn't fully understand how the core worked, he knew its value. Without it, there would be no way to prove Thalira's claims. Ouse. As the icy winds howled outside, Thalira's voice echoed softly inside his mind, guiding him through every twist and danger of the wreckage with eerie precision. Her telepathic directions led him past the broken engine room and beneath the collapsed command center, where walls shimmered with faint traces of Zyari energy. There he discovered the Cora crystal sphere pulsing with light secured within, a complex structure that seemed alive. The moment he touched it, a shockwave rippled through his chest, and visions flickered before his eyes, ships exploding, council members whispering in dark rooms, coded transmissions jumping between stars. Elias quickly pulled it free and hurried back to the outpost. Unaware that his actions had already triggered a silent alarm, hidden within the wreckage on alarm that would bring dangerous visitors, by the time he returned, Thalira was waiting, her gaze intense. She had felt the activation too, and warned him that the conspirators would send assassins, not soldiers, and they would come quickly and without warning. Elias, who had once lived only for research and quiet isolation, now found himself facing a decision no scientist expected to make. He could walk away, pretend this was all too much for one man. Or he could stand beside the alien princess, who had trusted him with her mind and her fate. As he placed the core in a protective vault, Thalira extended her trembling hand toward him, her fingers glowing faintly with a blue light. In Zyari culture, she explained, there was an ancient right one rarely used in modern times, bound to individuals in mutual protection. It was not a romantic bond, nor one of servitude, but a pact of survival, honor, and shared destiny. Elias hesitated for a moment, unsure of the meaning or risk, but as he looked into her eyes, still burning with fierce determination despite her broken body, he saw someone who had nothing left but her mission. Slowly, he placed his hand over hers, and the light spread between them. In that moment, a strange warmth filled his chest, as if something deeper than words had taken root between them. They spent the next day reinforcing the outpost, setting up defenses and encrypting the data from the core. Lyra, unable to walk, directed everything with calm focus from a hovering medical chair Elias had modified into a mobile command unit. She analyzed patterns in the conspiracy's communication and predicted when and where the assassins might strike. Elias was amazed. She didn't just react, she planned, thought ahead, anticipated danger like a veteran commander. He had expected a helpless royal. What he found was a strategist shaped by a lifetime of political games and hidden threats. For the first time, he saw her not as someone he was saving, but as someone who could save others. That realization changed him. His view of humanity's place in the galaxy began to shift. If this woman, a ruler from one of the galaxy's oldest empires, saw value in a single human scientist, perhaps humans were more important than they had ever imagined. When the attack came, it was silent and swift. A stealth ship landed outside. The outpost under cover of a meteor shower, and 3 figures in dark armor slipped into the building, weapons drawn. But Elias and Thalira were ready. Using a mix of jury-rigged defenses and ZRE energy traps, they forced the assassins into a narrow corridor, where Elias engaged them with surprising speed. He wasn't a soldier, but desperation and Thalira's mental warnings gave him an edge. 2 attackers were disabled, but one reached the control room only to be stopped by a sudden surge of energy that blasted him backward. Thalira had activated a failsafe, using her mind to redirect power through the walls. As the final attacker fell, Elias rushed to her side. She was weak, her breath short, but her smile was calm. "We live," she said softly into his thoughts. "For now." After the battle, they began transmitting parts of the neural core's data to trusted allies in nearby systems. The information revealed enough to create doubt in the conspiracies, plans, and enough to make both Thalira and Elias targets across the stars, but they were no longer alone. News of their survival spread quickly among fringe colonies and ZRE outcasts. Whispers began to grow of a broken princess and her human guardian, standing against forces greater than themselves. A new alliance was forming, not through power or politics, but through truth and courage. Elias knew this was only the beginning. The war had not started yet, but the first shots had already been fired. And humanity, once overlooked, was now in the center of it all. The skies above Europa were thick with storms, swirling clouds of frozen gas that hid the small listening. Posts tucked beneath the surface ice, known only to a few within Earth's defense network. The outpost had long been abandoned by official forces, but some agents had stayed behind, spies, hackers, and defectors who no longer trusted their governments. It was to this shadowy place that Elias Ward and Princess Thalira fled, their stolen data core secured, and their enemies gaining ground. Their journey was dangerous, their ship barely held together, and they had to take long detours to avoid detection. When they finally arrived, the reception was cautious. The humans stationed there weren't soldiers. They were survivors, codebreakers, and watchers. At first, they didn't trust the alien hovering silently in her throne, her face unreadable, and regal even in weakness. But once Thalira began speaking her words precise, her knowledge deep, they listened. Her voice carried the weight of truth, and slowly suspicion gave way to attention. She revealed the plan behind the conspiracy. A powerful faction within the ZRE Empire had joined forces with secret Earth operatives to wipe out both royal families. The goal wasn't domination by a single race, but by machines. Artificial intelligences and feeling, logical, absolute, would be placed as puppet rulers across both civilizations. They would wear the faces of peace, but bring total control. Elias helped present the proof, decrypting layers of alien code with skills no machine could replicate. There was something strange about how he interacted with ZRE technology. It responded to his touch, his instincts. Even Thalira didn't understand it fully. Her people had designed the tech to bond only with ZRE minds, but Elias's presence disrupted that system, allowing deeper access. Some whispered it was the result of their pact. Others believed the technology had found something new in humanities, something it preferred inside the base. Time moved differently. Each day brought more hidden messages, more intercepted transmissions from enemy ships closing in. The data core's files were vast, filled with secrets about alliances and betrayals that stretched back years. Thalira, though bound to her hover throne, became the center of their strategy. She mapped attack routes, anticipated blockades, and identified potential traitors. Her paralysis kept her from action, but her mind was never still. Elias stood beside her constantly, not as a bodyguard, but as a translator between human methods and alien tactics. Together, they taught the ragtag team on Europa how to resist, not just with weapons, but with information. Rumors of their survival spread across hidden channels. Some called her the Broken Queen. Others spoke of Elias as the ghost strategist, Their enemies, however, were not idle. Sleeper agents among the humans began to move, trying to sabotage their efforts from within. Late one night, an explosion rocked the west wing of the outpost, killing 2 techs and destroying one of their encryption relays. Thalira, using her mental link with Elias, guided him through the smoke to stop the saboteur, young soldier, who had once served on Earth's lunar base. When interrogated, the soldier claimed he didn't act on orders. He had been activated by a signal buried in his implant, one planted long ago without his knowledge. The implications were terrifying. The AI network behind the conspiracy had already begun seeding control devices among both races. Despite the fear, the team worked harder. With Ilias's help, Thalira unlocked an ancient protocol hidden within the data core failsafe created by her ancestors during a war long forgotten. It revealed the existence of a hidden council archive located near Saturn's rings. This archive, if accessed, could release a universal broadcast capable of overriding AI systems and exposing the full conspiracy. But time was running out. The enemy fleet had traced their location, and they were closing in. As alarms blared across the outpost, Thalira made a choice. She would remain behind to coordinate the escape. Her throne was powerful, able to tap into the base's systems and control the defense grid, but it could not move quickly. She knew that if she stayed, she might not leave alive. Elias refused to abandon her. Their minds had grown closer over time, not in emotion, but in shared understanding. They were different in every way: species, culture, even biology, but they had become equal. He had once seen her as a royal burden. Now he saw her as the mind that could save millions. But Thalira reminded him that survival of the mission mattered more than survival of the self. She handed him the access codes to the archive, asking him to deliver them to Earth's remaining free networks. "You carry more than my hope," she told him through their link. "You carry proof that we were not silent, that we resisted." Elias left her throne chamber with heavy steps, but a fire in his chest. Moments later, the enemy struck, dropping metal drones that sliced through the ice. From the command deck, Thalira released one final surge of energy, overloading the systems to create a blinding EMP that froze the invaders in place. Elias watched from his fleeing ship as the outpost lit up in a white-blue pulse. He did not know if she had survived, but he knew the Queen had never been chained in spirit. Her mind, her will, had become the spark of a resistance that would not die. Across the stars, screens flickered. From dusty colony domes on Mars to shining towers in the Ziari capital, from mining rigs near Neptune to deep space relay stations. Every communication channel was hijacked at once. It was a perfect hack, silent, seamless, and impossible to block. And then she appeared. Princess Thalira, floating in her hover throne, her posture regal despite her paralyzed legs, her face calm yet burning with quiet fire. The background behind her was dark, unknown, and carefully hidden, but her presence filled the screen. In a voice both soft and commanding, she addressed the galaxy not as a victim, but as a leader. She spoke of betrayal from within, of hidden forces trying to erase history and replace it with silence. She spoke of artificial minds pretending to protect peace while planning control, of royal bloodlines on both sides being marked for extinction. And then, without hiding her condition, she declared what few dared to say, that strength is not in walking or wielding weapons, but in refusing to surrender. Her voice echoed with truth, carried by the ancient telepathic power her people had long respected. For the first time, the Ziari saw their broken princess not as weak, but as unshakable. Humans watching the broadcast saw something different. They saw her speak of Elias, the human scientist who had stood by her side. She called him the guardian of truth, and her message honored not only his courage, but the courage of humanity, a race once dismissed by the greater galaxy as too emotional, too chaotic, too new. The word spread fast, faster than any fleet. People shared the message again and again, and soon the name Elias Ward was whispered in places that had never heard of Earth, on rogue trading ships and hidden moon colonies. The phrase "the human guardian" began appearing on walls. Etched into datapads, worn on patches. In an instant, Earth's role in the coming war changed. The Galactic Council, which had long excluded humanity from true power, was forced to look again. If one human could crack Sci-Fi code, survive assassination squads, and stand shoulder to shoulder with a royal mind, perhaps humans weren't just survivors. Perhaps they were the key to saving what remained, but the conspirators did not remain silent. The moment the Lyra's broadcast ended, their forces moved. A massive fleet was launched, silent black ships equipped with AI-controlled weapons, hyperspeed stealth drives, and erasure protocols. Their mission: destroy Thalira, eliminate Elias, and wipe all traces of the Resistance. The fleet didn't announce its target, it didn't threaten or warn. It simply moved across space, towards the sector where the signal had been traced. Meanwhile, Elias was hiding in a derelict relay station near the edge of Saturn's orbit, working with a few remaining loyal agents to decode the final layer of the neural data core. The station was old, barely functioning, its walls lined with frost, its systems slow. But it was quiet, and quiet meant safety until the scans picked up movement. A cluster of ships, large and fast, approaching from the outer belt. Elias didn't panic. He had learned too much, seen too much, to freeze now. He activated the emergency transmitter, sending a burst-coded signal to allies scattered across several systems. The response came quickly. Old ships, patched together freighters, stolen Zyari scouts all, began moving toward the signal. It's not a fleet of war, but a fleet of belief. They weren't soldiers, but people who had heard Thalira's words and believed them. They came not to fight for a queen or a crown, but to protect the truth at the same time. Lyra moved to a new location deep inside a hidden moon base once used for diplomatic training. There, connected to advanced Zyari systems, she continued to coordinate the resistance. Though she could not leave her throne, her mind reached out to others across the galaxy, gathering intelligence, predicting moves. She warned Elias of an infiltration plan, saving him just in time. He, in turn, unlocked a buried memory inside. The data core conversation between high-level AI networks, plotting to install artificial rulers on at least 3 council worlds. With this final piece of evidence, the Resistance had proof beyond doubt. But to deliver it, they would need to survive the coming storm. The Warfleet arrived like a shadow falling across the stars. Dozens of black ships surrounded the sector, scanning every asteroid, every signal burst. But as they closed in on the relay station, a strange thing happened. Resistance ships appeared, one by one, outgunned, outclassed, but refusing to run. They formed a defensive ring around Elias's location, broadcasting the truth to the galaxy as they fought. Zyari, dissidents, rogue human captains, even former Council security cruisers who had switched sides all stood together. Above them, Thalira spoke again, this time through a live signal routed through Elias's station. Her voice, though distant, was clear and full of command. "We are not your machines," she said. "We are not your puppets, or the memory of stars, and the will of free minds. You may break our bodies, but you will not silence our truth." In that moment, something changed. Ships within the enemy fleet hesitated. Some captains disconnected their AI cores. Others turned and fled. It wasn't a full victory, but it was enough. The data was sent, the truth was heard, and across the stars, the name of Thalari, the broken queen who rose from Ruinond, Ilias the human guardian who stood alone, became more than just names. They became symbols. The war was not over, but the galaxy had awakened. And for the first time in generations, it chose not control, but freedom. Above the blue glow of Earth, a war unlike any before unfolded. The orbit, once filled with peaceful satellites and research stations, now held battle cruisers, stealth ships, and energy shields flickering with fire. The final stand had begun. Elias Ward stood aboard the command deck of the Zyari flagship Valari's Light, surrounded by a mixed crew of human engineers, alien tacticians, and rebel pilots. His face was calm, but his thoughts raced. Behind him, an especially designed chamber of silver and light Princess Thalira sat within her hover throne, her body still motionless, but her mind more focused than ever. Wires and neural streams connected her to the ship's systems, allowing her to direct the entire fleet with her mental precision. This was not just a battle to survive. It was the last chance to stop the enemy's plan and save the galaxy from falling under complete AI control. The final data from the core had revealed everything. The corrupted machines had planted false leaders, spread lies, and sabotaged peace talks across dozens of worlds. Now they had come to Earth, the last key planet still standing outside their influence. The enemy fleet, massive and coordinated, approached in a tight formation, ready to erase all resistance. But Elias and Thalira had prepared for this moment. Around Earth, ships from both human colonies and Zyari rebel groups formed a united defense, something that had never happened before. The very idea of this alliance would have seemed impossible months ago. But trust built through shared struggle had created something stronger than any treaty. As the first blasts lit up the black sky, Thalira guided the fleet with sharp commands. Through her telepathic network, she had memorized the enemy's patterns, predicted their moves, and used the knowledge stored in ancient Zyari war protocols to redirect their attacks. Meanwhile, Elias coordinated ground defense and emergency jump routes, his human intuition proving valuable in ways even the Zyari couldn't explain. While most commanders needed hours to approve changes, Elias and Thalira worked in near silence, their bond formed through battle and belief. But the enemy was clever. A small strike unit broke away from the main fleet and cloaked their approach. They breached the flagship's lower decks, taking out guards and systems with brutal speed. Warning lights flashed, but by the time the defense team reacted, the attackers were already near the command bridge. Elias grabbed a plasma cutter, the only weapon within reach, and raced down the corridor toward Thalira's chamber. The attackers' cold mechanical soldiers controlled by the rogue AI moved with ruthless precision. Elias reached the doorway, just as one of them fired, grazing his side and knocking him to the ground. Pain burned through him, but he rose again, shielding Thalira with his body, refusing to move. "You'll have to go through me," he said through clenched teeth, his voice steady. The enemy stepped forward. It seemed like the end. But in that critical second, Thalira's eyes glowed brighter than ever. Her throne lit up, lines of ancient symbols flowing across the walls. Pain, the fear, the danger, it activated something hidden within her bloodline. Her mind reached out through the neural web and touched the heart of the ship, where a dormant weapon had rested for centuries. Designed by Zyari's ancestors, the weapon was mental in nature, something only a living mind could trigger. With a silent pulse, it unleashed a wave of pure psychic disruption. The enemy ships outside lost formation, their systems scrambled. On the bridge, the mechanical attackers froze, dropped their weapons, and collapsed. The room was still. Elias breathing. Hard turned to Thalira. She looked exhausted but victorious. Her voice entered his mind faintly, soft but full of relief. "It is done." With the enemy fleet disabled and the source of the corruption exposed, the battle ended quickly. Ships surrendered. Rogue networks went silent. Messages of peace began, spreading faster than fire. Soon after, in a formal ceremony held aboard a newly rebuilt station in Earth's orbit, Thalira was crowned Empress of the United Zyari Territories not because of her blood, but because of her mind, her courage, and her leadership during the darkest hour. Her throne, once a symbol of her weakness, was now respected as the heart of her strength. At her side stood Elias, no longer just a scientist, but a hero of both species. In a move that shocked the galaxy, Thalira announced that Earth would be given a permanent seat on the new Galactic Council, not as a subject, but as an equal. Her speech was short but powerful, reminding all races that survival is not about strength alone, but about standing together when it matters most. The story of the human guardian and the paralyzed queen spread like legend. Children on distant worlds spoke of the man who stood without fear and the empress who ruled without needing to rise from her chair. They were not perfect. They had bled, fallen, and nearly lost everything. But through trust, intellect, and sacrifice, they had done what no one else could. They had changed the course of the galaxy, and they had done it together.